Hey there, welcome to the Python guide video on how to create a quiz using Google Forms in a simple way, just like the one we are watching right now. But first, what is a quiz and what is Google Forms? A quiz is a simple test that serves to evaluate and measure the knowledge that a person has about a particular topic. They are interactive tools that have a less formal character and some have an assignment of scores. On the other hand, Google Forms is a Google tool that allows us to create and publish forms, surveys, quizzes, and much more, and allowing us to see the results graphically. But before starting, I am going to give you a couple of tricks to make the quiz visually appealing to users. We can include true or false questions. We can include multiple choice questions, where there will be 4 possible answers and only one of them is correct. And finally, we can also include questions with an open answer, where the user can write a text. In addition, the quiz should include a brief description of the topic we are going to deal with, a total of approximately 10 questions, and we must also include images related to the topic. When it comes to getting images for our quiz, we can look for copyright-free images on some websites, such as pexels.com, pixabay.com, or unsplash.com. Now that we know all this, let's get started. So, first, once we open our browser, we go to the Google Apps section and then click on the Forms icon. At the top, we can find a series of templates. The first one is a blank template, and then we have several other options, such as order forms, job application, among others. In our case, we are going to create a quiz using a blank template. At the top left, we can change the name of our quiz, and in this case we will call it quiz number 1. Then we will find 3 tabs: questions, responses, and setting, which we will review in depth later. Finally, at the top right, we find a series of icons. With the first one we can customize the theme, we can add a header, we can change the theme color and the background color, even the font style. With the second icon we can preview the work we have done. The next icons are undo and redo. Finally, we have the send icon in purple color. This is the option we are going to use once we have finished the quiz, and we want to send it to someone to complete it. We can send it via email, a link, or an embed HTML. We also have the option to share it through social networks such as Facebook and Twitter. Okay, now it's time to create our quiz. So we have to go to the Questions tab. At the top, we can see the title of our quiz, and we can also add a short description. On the right hand side, we find several options. The first one is Add a new question. In this section we can add a question as well as an image. On the right side we can find different types of questions that we can include in our quiz. The most typical for a quiz are multiple choice, short answer, paragraph, checkboxes, among others. We will then add our question to the quiz, so for now let's continue looking at the options available to us. The second option is to import questions we have asked in other Google Forms. If you have never produced a Google Form, this option is not for you. The third option is to add a title and description. Very simple, isn't it? The fourth option is to add an image. Here we can upload it from our computer, take it directly with the PC camera, search for it on Google, etc. The fifth option is to add a video. This option is only possible if the video is on YouTube. We can search for it in the search bar or paste the link directly. Finally, the last option is to add a new section. This option is quite important as it will help us to give a structure to our quiz. Now that we have the basics of Google Forms, we can start creating our own quiz. So, let's get started. But before we start, I would like to give you a recommendation. Write the quiz questions and possible answers in a Word document, including the images, so you will have everything organized in just one file and it will be easier to copy the information to the Google Forms. Well, the first thing we are going to do is to add a brief description of the quiz we are going to produce. In this case, it will be a brief description of the topic. Welcome to the Positive Mental Health, promoting my own positive mental health quiz. Now it's time to add our first question. To do this, we go to the right hand side and click on Add Question. In the question section, we simply copy the wording of the question, which in this case is, to ensure a state of positive mental health, it is important to. Then it's time to add the possible answers. In this question, there will be 4 options. A. Improve our leisure time activities. B. Cultivate meaningful relationships. C. Give up unhealthy behaviors. And finally with D. All of the above. Once we have copied the content of the question, we will have to go on to set up the question. To do this, first we have to enable the required option, so that the person answering the quiz cannot skip the question. Then we have to access the question settings by clicking on the 3 dots. Once there, we have to go to the Go To section based on answer. This step is important as this is what we do to select the correct answer. To choose the correct answer, we will have to leave the Continue to Next section option activated. For incorrect answers, we will have to change this option to Go to section number 1. This way, when the person taking the quiz chooses an incorrect answer, it will not let them advance to the next section. Just as you are seeing now, if the learner chooses the wrong answer, the quiz will redirect them back to the same question, and they will have the option to change their answer. Once we have completed all these steps, we are going to add a new section. To do this, we go to the right hand side and click on the Add Section button. Here, as a title, we add a congratulation note, something like well done, and then in the description we add a short description of the correct answer. If we don't want to add a description, we can add an image related to the answer. To do this, we go to the right hand side and click on the Add Image button. Then we can drag the image and it will be automatically added to our quiz. To make the quiz more visually appealing, we will center the image. We have to click on the 3 dots located on the top left. Choose the option Center Align. Then click on the picture, a blue box will appear, and by dragging one of the corners we can make the photo bigger. And with this we have officially finished our first question. The procedure for adding the other questions is the same, no matter what type of question it is. It is important to mention that when we choose a question with the short answer option, when we configure it, we click on the response validation option. Then, several options will appear at the bottom of the screen. We have the option to choose number, text, length, and regular expression, so we can choose any of them depending on our needs. The next thing is to keep adding our questions. And we are basically done with this little tutorial on how to create a quiz using Google Forms. Now it's time for you to try it on your own. Try creating a quiz using Google Forms and share it to test the people's knowledge.